our final afternoon for this edition of the HollyShorts Film Festival as the official podcast partners, which is a lot of fun. I am one of your hosts, Indiana Underhill, co-founder of CFA and a cinematographer. And we have Haley, an actor and one of the other co-founders of CFA, sitting with me today. Really excited. We have Howl with the great poster. That is not the film title, though, just Howl. And Bernadette Bridges, writer and director, and Julian Bridges, producer, editor, and composer. Very cool that you're producer, editor, composer. We haven't had that yet because that means you're like pre-production and post. Like you're just like throughout all of it. And I absolutely love that. I adore that you guys work together. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the technical, talk about what Howl is about, the log line even.
Yeah, so Howl is about the day in the life of this older woman named Brenda, who kind of feels alone, and then over the course of a day, after she has all these positive interactions with strangers, she realizes that she's not as alone as she thinks she is.
Okay, fun. Awesome. And have you guys worked together before? I know you're related, right? Last name here. But how have you worked together in the past? Or how did this kind of come about? Did you always want to work in film together?
I mean, I'll take a little and then I'll hand it over. But yeah, I guess we just work together on a lot of stuff, anything creative. We both dabble in a lot of different creative fields. So I think we just have naturally collaborated on most of the things we do because we have very similar visions and taste. But I came to filmmaking later than Julian did. So I moved to LA about 3 years ago after he had basically just finished his time at film school at USC. And I was always interested in filmmaking, kind of studied film in a more theoretical sense, but like in college and stuff, but I've always written. So I was studying writing and directing theater, and wrote this script for a short and showed it to Julian, and he kind of encouraged me and helped kickstart the whole process, including the Kickstarter. So yeah, but you know, if you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, I mean that's I think a lot of it, you know, in case y'all can't tell, like we're siblings.
Yes,
we got really close when we were living in New York, which was just before I came to LA for film school. So I think through that process of we had always been 4 years apart. We still are 4 years apart. But that distance, I think, as kids was enough to where we were close and tight. But when we actually lived in the same city at the same time as adults, that's when we got really, really close. And since then, pretty much everything that we do creatively, the other one is involved in. So the first thing we did was we wrote a feature script together. Like as Bernadette was leaving New York and coming to LA.
Cool. And during pandemic.
Yeah,
and
of course.
then the first days of the pandemic when there was nothing to do, we wrote this feature, and that was our first time doing something together, truly. And then this film was like the first big production that we took on together.
Now, for the writing of the script, obviously, so producer, editor, and composer Julian. For Bernie, writing the script, what was that like giving it over to your brother? Was there any messaging around it of like, we're not going to sacrifice these things? Because with like filmmaking, you're always like, okay, budget, limitations, restraints around time and locations and casting. What were the things that you said to your brother, we have to keep this in? Or for Julian, what were some of the things that you were like, this has to stay in?
Totally. Well, one thing, I really wrote this thinking I was making like a tiny budget, like we make it with a DSLR type vibe.
Right.
Not realizing how expensive locations are. So I definitely think that was a funny thing to look back on now, is like, I just, you know, new scene, new location, like
swimming pool.
Yeah, random location, throw them in there. And now I'm like, wow, I definitely wouldn't have done it the same, or, you know, I'm glad I did it that way. It definitely adds this diversity, not only of like, you know, character, but also location that really gives you a sense of day-to-day life.
Yes.
But I think like the dream sequence at the end was one that that was the thing that started the whole idea, basically.
Cool. Wow.
It actually originally was supposed to be, the main character was going to be a dog, and it was this dog that was having all these moments of feeling appreciation towards humans. And then Julian was like, okay, can't do it with a dog. That's too expensive. And then I rethought it and thought about how so much of the things I write, I want to be giving a space for like a character that isn't usually given space in narrative. And so older women aren't usually given a chance to develop and like have a change in their life. You know, I think as a young woman, it's hard to see so much media about young women undergoing change and feel like, okay, so I guess my whole life has to happen right now.
Yeah.
But that's
so casting was a priority.
Yeah, exactly. Needed the protagonist to be an older woman.
Cool. Julian, how about for you? What were some of the priorities or like the things you didn't want to sacrifice?
Well, one of the very first things was we both do like a little bit just as a hobby of like photography.
Yeah.
And we both shoot just 35 like analog film, just because there's like some kind of connection that we both individually, separately, I think, found with that. So Bernie said from the get-go that she wanted to shoot it, or pretty early on that she wanted to shoot it on 16.
Yeah.
And we knew that that was going to be a challenge for a lot of reasons, you know, budgetarily, but then also in order to say like we have to really limit the way that we cover these scenes.
Of course, yeah.
But I think that what was really cool is that a big part of her vision for this was to make it feel sort of like a storybook and to make every scene feel like it's playing out in these sort of locked off shots that linger and that feel like you're watching the pace of someone's real life.
Yeah.
And so I think that that sort of bled into the way we shot it with 16 in saying, okay, so let's use that to our advantage. Let's use that to limit the coverage that we get, and then bringing on our friend Theo, who is the cinematographer, who's got a real specialty in 16. That was something that I think early on helped the vision come together, and we love Theo.
What are some of the limitations when you decide to shoot on 16? Because I know you said you thought you were making a very inexpensive movie, but that I think shooting on film is going to make it a lot more expensive. So what did you have to deal with there?
I think like honestly it ended up being, it kind of went hand in hand with the vision because I really wanted it to feel like you know, looking at a photo or, you know, a children's book. And so just having something that kind of feels stylized in a more graceful way rather than a super high energy stylization. And I think 16 millimeter just immediately creates almost a painting.
Yeah.
So then basically every scene was 2 setups, maybe 3.
Just intentional setups for that visual language.
Did you have to have a conversation with your talent to be like, there's no, you can't mess around here, this isn't digital? Was there anything like that to be like, this is film, when we work we gotta work?
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest was the there's like a walk and talk on a Steadicam, and that I had to rehearse with the actors ahead of time. But honestly, just Annie, our main actor, she's such a natural and really just did a lot of thought beforehand, and we met with her a lot of times, Julian and I, from the very beginning to talk about things.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'll jump in to add is like the fact that we shot on 16, I think it costs money to shoot on 16,
right,
a significant amount, but we were able to save money, I think, in some of the production design and some of the locations because the fact that it's shot on 16 gives it sort of a boost in that.
It's the give and take of like, we have this number, if we want to prioritize shooting on 16, let's figure out where we can cut it from other places, right?
Yeah, and having the stylized look of the film itself, I think sort of gives you a little more room to play in terms of not needing as much lighting gear, not needing as much production design.
What stock was it? Do you know?
Yeah, it was Kodak. We all shot all Kodak, and we shot, I think, 5 rolls of 50D and I think 2 rolls of 250T.
Okay, cool. And what, same like normal processing or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah. Great. I always just like, I'm like a big fan of
nerds out there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like is it 7217, the 200T. stock for 16 mil. And so whenever I hear anything like that, I'm just like, I know, right? Like, I just want to be like, let's connect over that.
Oh,
But it's like, I'm so happy you guys had made that visual choice and you put it into the coverage and setups that were intentional for the story, because at the end of the day, it's how do we tell the best story. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been an interview with Bernadette Bridges, writer and director of Howl, and Julian Bridges, the producer, editor, and composer of Howl. Thank you so much. It's screened on August 12th, but you can still catch it on bitpixtv.com. This has been another episode of Cinematography for Actors. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Later.
This has been another episode of the Cinematography for Actors podcast. Follow us on wherever you listen to your podcast to keep up to date on new episode releases. We will be live through August 20th here at HollyShorts Film Fest. If you're here, drop in and say a little hello at the VIP lounge. We also want to thank our sponsors, Apogee, Film Tools, Roscoe, Lightstone Rentals, Canon, and First Mile Tech. As a special gift to you listeners, we've partnered with We Make Movies to get you a discount on comprehensive production insurance packages. Use code CFA23 on your intake form for 10% off your quote by visiting wemakemovies.org/insurance.
If you missed any of our live streams, you can watch all of our interviews on our YouTube channel, Cinematography for Actors. And make sure you follow us on Instagram at Cinematography for Actors. You can also catch us in a more formal setting on Monday, August 14th at Japan House for a panel discussion on the importance of bridging the gap between talent and crew. You can get 20% off of your ticket purchase by using the code HSFF2023CFA at checkout.
Thanks!